He sang on dusty streets while the world walked past him. No stage, no spotlight. Just a broken speaker and a heart full of hope. Every note was for one person, his sick mother waiting at home. Then one day, that same voice stood in front of Simon Cowell. What happened next shocked everyone. In just a few seconds, a life built on struggle turned into a miracle no one expected. This isn't just a performance, it's a story of sacrifice, love, and a golden buzzer moment that will give you chills. Watch closely. This changes everything. The street came alive just before sunset, when the heat softened and the noise grew louder. Buses groaned as they stopped and started again. Motorcycles sliced through traffic, and vendors shouted over one another, trying to sell their last snacks of the day. In the middle of all that chaos, stood a young Filipino boy, thin, tired, and far too young to be carrying such heavy responsibility on his shoulders. His slippers were worn down at the edges, his shirt faded from too many washes, but his eyes carried a determination that refused to break. He adjusted the small microphone in his hand, tapping it gently to make sure it still worked. The speaker beside him was old and scratched, held together with tape, but it was all he had. This street corner had become his stage, his classroom, and his battlefield. Every evening, he came back to the same spot, hoping tonight would be different. Hoping tonight someone would stop. Hoping tonight he could earn just enough. When he began to sing, his voice rose above the noise of the city. It wasn't loud at first. It didn't demand attention. Instead, it slipped into the air softly like a secret. A few people glanced his way, then kept walking. Others didn't even notice him. He was used to that. Being invisible had become part of his life. As he sang, his mind drifted to a small dark room he called home. There, his mother lay on a thin mattress, her breathing weak, her body exhausted from an illness that had slowly taken everything from her. She used to smile more. She used to hum along when he sang as a child. Now she barely had the strength to sit up. The medicine she needed was expensive, and the hospital bills felt impossible. Singing on the streets wasn't a dream, it was the only choice. The boy tightened his grip on the microphone as his voice grew stronger. Every lyric carried the weight of his fear of losing her, fear of coming home with empty hands, fear of a future that seemed to close in on him more each day. Still he sang with everything he had, because stopping meant surrender, and surrender was something he could not afford. Coins dropped into the small box at his feet. The sound made his heart jump every time. Each clink felt like hope. Some nights, people were kind. A woman might smile and whisper, "God bless you." A man might stop for a moment, listening before nodding quietly and walking away. Other nights, no one stopped at all. Those were the hardest. The streetlights flickered on as the sky darkened, casting long shadows around him. His voice grew tired, but he refused to quit. His stomach ached from hunger, yet he kept singing. Sweat ran down his face, mixing with tears he didn't realize were falling. He sang louder now, not for the people rushing past, but for his mother lying at home, waiting for him. In that moment, the street didn't feel like a place of despair. It felt like a promise that if he just kept going, if he just believed a little longer, something had to change. He imagined a world where his mother was healthy again, where he could sing without fear, where music wasn't about survival but joy. As his song ended, the noise of the street rushed back in, almost swallowing him whole. He bowed his head slightly, whispering a quiet prayer. He didn't know it yet, but this same voice, shaped by struggle, sharpened by pain, and filled with love, was meant for something far greater than this street corner. This was only the beginning. The moment his name was called, his heart began to race. He stood frozen for a second, staring at the massive stage in front of him, its lights glowing so brightly they almost hurt his eyes. This place felt like another world, silent, polished, and powerful. Nothing like the noisy streets where he usually sang. He took a deep breath, wiped his hands on his pants, and stepped forward, each footstep echoing louder than he expected. The judges watched him closely. Their expressions were calm, unreadable. Simon Cowell sat in the center, arms crossed, his gaze sharp and focused. The boy had seen him on television before, known for being brutally honest. That thought made his hands tremble even more. Still he reminded himself why he was here. Not for fame, not for applause. He was here for his mother. The host asked him a simple question, his name, his age, where he came from. His voice shook as he answered, but he spoke clearly. Then came the question that made his throat tighten. Why did he choose to sing? The boy paused, swallowing hard. He talked about the streets, about singing to earn money, about how his mother was sick and how music was the only way he knew to help her. His words weren't dramatic, but they were honest. The room grew quiet, the kind of silence that feels heavy. Simon leaned forward slightly, curiosity replacing doubt. The boy closed his eyes for a moment, centering himself, before raising the microphone. The first note left his lips softly, almost fragile. For a brief second, it seemed as if the song might disappear into the air. Then something changed. His voice grew fuller, richer, carrying emotion that filled every corner of the theater. The audience leaned in. A few people gasped quietly. The judges exchanged glances, surprised by the power coming from someone so small. His voice wasn't perfect in a technical sense, but it was real. Every note carried the weight of long nights, empty pockets, and a heart that refused to give up. As he sang, images of his mother filled his mind. He imagined her listening, her eyes closed, her lips forming a faint smile. That thought gave him strength. His voice soared higher now, steady and confident. The fear melted away, replaced by a calm determination. This was his moment, and he wasn't going to waste it. Simon's expression softened. The skepticism he was known for slowly faded, replaced by something rare, emotion. One judge placed a hand over their mouth, another nodded gently to the rhythm of the song. The audience began to rise from their seats one by one, as if pulled up by the feeling in his voice. When the final note hung in the air, there was a brief pause, a heartbeat where no one moved. Then the theater erupted. Cheers exploded from every direction. People clapped, shouted, and wiped away tears. The boy stood still, breathing heavily, unsure of what to do next. He had given everything he had, and now all he could do was wait. Simon stood up slowly, the applause still roaring around him. He looked directly at the boy, and spoke about how rare it is to hear a voice that tells a true story. He said this wasn't just singing, it was sharing a life. The boy felt his eyes burn as he listened, struggling to hold back tears. For the first time in his life he felt truly seen. The applause seemed endless, crashing over him like a wave he didn't know how to escape. His chest rose and fell rapidly as he tried to catch his breath, still holding the microphone with both hands as if letting go might cause everything to disappear. The lights above him felt warmer now, almost gentle, and the sound of the crowd blurred into something distant, like a dream he was afraid to wake up from. Simon Cowell remained standing, waiting for the noise to settle. When he raised his hand, the audience slowly quieted, though their energy still filled the room. Simon looked at the boy with an intensity that made his heart pound again. He expected more questions, maybe advice, maybe criticism. Instead, Simon spoke calmly, his voice carrying across the theater. He talked about courage, about how most people never find the strength to stand on a stage and share something so personal. He said the boy's voice wasn't just impressive, it was honest. It came from a place that couldn't be taught or trained. As Simon spoke, the boy's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever spoken about him like that before, especially not someone whose opinion mattered so much. Simon paused, glancing briefly toward the judges beside him, then back at the boy. The silence felt heavy, stretching longer than it should have. The boy's thoughts raced. Was this the end? Had he done enough? His fingers tightened around the microphone as his knees began to shake. Then Simon smiled. It wasn't a big smile, but it was real. He said there are moments on this stage that remind him why the show exists in the first place. Moments that go beyond talent and touch something deeper. Moments that change lives. The boy barely breathed as he listened, his mind struggling to keep up with what was happening. Simon turned slowly toward the large golden button in front of him. For a split second, the boy didn't understand what was happening. Then Simon pressed it. The explosion of gold came without warning. Confetti poured from the ceiling, filling the air with light A.N.D. color. The audience screamed, their cheers louder than anything he had ever heard. The boy gasped, dropping the microphone as he covered his mouth with both hands. His legs gave out, and he fell to his knees, shaking, overwhelmed by disbelief. Tears streamed down his face as the reality of the moment finally hit him. This wasn't just applause, this wasn't just approval, this was a miracle. Judges rushed toward the stage, clapping, smiling, some with tears in their eyes. The host wrapped an arm around him, helping him stand as the gold continued to rain down. In his mind he saw his mother. He imagined her watching, her face lit up with pride, her worries easing just a little. He whispered her name under his breath, his voice breaking. Every night on the street, every song sung through hunger and fear, had led to this moment. Simon walked up to him, placing a hand on his shoulder. He told him this was only the beginning, that his voice had the power to reach millions, that his story mattered. The boy nodded, unable to speak, his tears answering for him. As the confetti slowly settled, he looked out at the crowd, no longer feeling small or invisible. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a wall closing in. It felt open, wide, full of possibility. From a street corner to a golden stage, his journey had just begun, and the world was finally listening.